Hello and welcome to everyone. Today our guest is MMA fighter Jesse Stirn. Jesse, thank you so much for accepting the interview. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to interview fighters from all around the globe, and it's always a pleasure to hear a lot of interesting stories. So, can you please share your story with us, like in 3 or 4 sentences? Then we're going to go with question by question, please.
Well, as far as my story, I don't think it's that interesting. It's probably the typical thing you get. People looking to do more in their life and get into fighting, and they progress and train and figure out that it's a thing you can do. It's not that much of an interesting story. I'm afraid so. But if you ask the questions and get through it, I'm sure you'll get to a few interesting stories, because as far as fighters, they have a lot of interesting stories. So
when did you start training MMA, and which was your first martial art?
I started with several things at the same time. Typically coming from America, you start with boxing or wrestling. I actually started with Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. And actually a little bit of Kung Fu from my initial instructors. So it was a good mesh together. That was when I was 18, back in 2011. So,
in your own words, how would you describe your fighting style?
Cerebral. It was more of, instead of direct style on style, I would think of the limitations of how fast the mind can think and how does it work, as far as how to use the feints properly. How much is enough to use a feint so you can save time, so you can actually implement your attacks or defense. So high pressure and quick thinking is what I tend to beat people with. Not exactly the punches or the kicks. It's just the pressure. And that's where the name comes from, with Relentless.
I just wanted to ask you about nickname, how you got it. So it matches fighting style? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you replied. Who are your coaches and sparring partners?
There's probably about 6 coaches. Hopefully I can name them all. Let's go. Ryan Mackin is the head coach. Paul Yan and John Vu are striking coaches, Muay Thai base. And then, let's see, let's go down the list. Eddie, yeah, he's been helping me out with MMA. Nick Ehrlich is for strength and conditioning. We worked a lot of that this last camp, and a lot of wrestling. So the 2 big ones this camp are Ryan Mackin for wrestling and Nick Ehrlich. And just because it was a hole in my game the last several fights, so we wanted to work on it, and it showed.
Do you have the favorite strike and favorite submission?
Favorite strike is elbows, definitely, but any elbow by far, any elbow. I've spent a little time in Thailand, and been cut open, and once that initial fear of being cut is gone, I've noticed that everyone else still has a bit of that fear. So I like to go to it as a go-to. Just because it makes people break mentally when you start hitting them with the sharp elbows. And I love every minute of it. So submission, rear naked choke, just simple. Just take the back and try and get the choke.
Do you prefer mid-range elbows or clinch elbows?
Clinch elbows by far.
Yeah, typical Muay Thai fighter, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anything from the inside, even faking a double and popping up with any kind of spinning elbow, any close range elbow. The ones skipping in from a distance, I think they tend to be a little bit more. It's hard to guess if they're about to throw one too. So I like to know where the arms are before I hit my attack. It's a safety thing, so I can keep throwing elbows. I don't want to give them the chance that I get knocked out and I can't enjoy throwing more elbows. So.
Sounds great. Do you have the favorite animal?
Favorite animal? Let me see. Whew. I haven't heard that one since grade school. Let me see. The new one on my list would have to be an elephant. Elephant. Just.
What can you say about your first amateur fight?
It wasn't what I expected. It was really scary because of the unknown, but getting through it, you realize fighting isn't really that. It can be scary, but it's not as scary as you think it will be. It's more of just it's just an altercation in a language that you notice it as a language. It's just a way of communicating. So it's actually quite I don't know, interesting. It's interesting. That's why I continued on. After my first amateur, I fell in love with it. There was a lot more to explore in the world of fighting. So, and now we're 15 professional fights in. So,
who was your toughest amateur opponent and why?
Toughest amateur. Let me see. It was probably Chad Wigington. It was the first time I encountered adversity. I lost. It was 5 rounds. I lost the first 3. So he was good on control. So that was different. I actually finished him in the 4th round with a rear naked choke. He got tired, but I don't know. It stands out the most because I worked too hard and I actually threw up all over the place as soon as the fight ended. So it was a bit of an interesting one, but that was probably the toughest amateur. And yeah, that was a good fight. It was a very good fight.
What can you say about your professional debut? Like the opponent, the promotion. It's a huge step up. I mean, from amateur to pro. How did you feel? Did it affect you? I mean, you were talking about mental aspect of the game previously. So did it affect you?
Yes. Oh yes. Bigger stage, more viewers, harder opponent. It was just bigger. There was more elevated senses, so there was a little bit more nervousness to it. And you were also fighting for money. Doubling the money with a win, it definitely it's a good incentive. What happened during that fight really is what helped change the way I think during the whole career. Right off the bell, I was hit with a spinning back kick right to the liver, so I had to instantly try and poker face and recover. So it was the best, worst testing professional scenario ever right off the 5 seconds in. So that it was quite the experience.
About the promotion you competed at the beginning of your career, generally, what do you think about your starting promotion? I mean, starting MMA promotion, was it a good one? Was it a good experience?
Oh yeah, it was Shogun Fights, which is my local cities. They put on a very good show. They have thousands of people in the stands, and the promotion is done very well and professional. And it ranges from debuts to bigger names coming on the card. So I got to meet a lot of veterans and a lot of newcomers. So it was the best ongoing experience, even to this day. Not during COVID. When COVID ends, it will start back up. But if I don't happen to get a call with anyone, UFC, ONE FC, Bellator, PFL, if I don't get any calls from them, I will surely try and fight on them again. It was a good experience.
What can you say about your battle with Georgi Kuklashvili? I think it was your first pro loss, right?
Yeah. The first pro loss. It was a cool guy, very, very good guy. I think I underestimated him. First round, I performed a lot of stand-up techniques and felt comfortable going into the second, almost too comfortable, where I was like, oh, I don't know what else this guy has for me. but he slipped a punch and got in on like double unders and a suplex, and the amount of strength and grappling he had was too late. He had my back, and he was so strong with a shorter, bulkier build. It was a mistake on my part. I should have been more cautious, and I mean, that takes away nothing from him. He played it perfectly. So, yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that one. Everybody's dangerous until the end bell. So.
Is your fastest victory against Timothy Wade like 44-second guillotine? Is that the fastest win, or?
I believe so. There was a few of those in there from varying opponents. A few of them shot in, and then I just grabbed a guillotine and went for it. I think that's yeah. I had a few in the 40-second range.
How did your time in Thailand change your fighting style?
It obviously got all the kicks, clinch, elbow, and punches a little bit better, but I think the biggest thing it changed in my style, career, everything is the amount of repetition. That was the first time I've seen anybody perform techniques in repetition for hours and hours and hours consistently. So what I brought back to the United States is that we're doing everything okay, the right way, but we're just not doing nearly enough of it. So when I came back to the United States, it was just repetition at that point, and that's how you get better. So that's the biggest thing, is just keep whatever you want to get better at, just keep doing it over and over and over again, and it'll get better.
So what do you think then? Is a fighter who knows one technique but performed it 10,000 times more dangerous than the fighter who knows 100 techniques but he didn't perform it 10,000 times?
Who said that? Was that more of a Bruce? Was that Bruce Lee? Yeah. One technique 1,000 times, because there's different variations of that technique. The timing is everything. Just like throwing a standard 1-2, like a jab cross, can be totally different if you put a pause in between, or you just make the one punch a little bit slower to give false advertising on your speed and then finish with a strong 2. So there's a million ways to throw one technique. So the guy that threw it 1,000 times is going to be the winner every time.
You fought a few times to split decision, to unanimous decision. How hard it is? I mean, fighting to a split decision, it usually means the fight is very close, but some promotions maybe have weird scoring systems. So how is that generally a problem for fighter, or?
Oh yeah, I just put it under the blanket term politics, I guess. It's not really politics. It's a lot of judges don't exactly know what is a good position and what isn't. So the judging definitely varies from state to state, country to country, person to person. Especially in the U.S., a lot of them come from boxing backgrounds, so it's kind of hard to discuss the grappling with them and who's winning on that. But I've had some decisions. Never won a decision. I mean, but it happens, you know. You try to finish your opponent, they defend, or vice versa. But so I've had some split decisions that I didn't think that were close at all, and especially rewatching the tape. But I've also lost some decisions unanimously that I don't really see how I would lose that. But it's, you know, it's politics and sometimes hometown favoritism, and I've received that several times too, as far as being judging, you know, because of my hometown I'm fighting in, and the judges kind of have a bias. So it's a hard, I don't really know how you stop that though, unless you pull in judges from across the countries. So I'm not quite sure how to fix it, but it's a thing, and it's annoying. It's very annoying. It's not real.
UFC, for example, is stacked with controversial decisions. I mean, that's like the greatest promotion in the world. But for example, many times my fans were protesting on some decisions. For example, I don't know whether you watched Mason Jones, I think Mike Davis. I mean, I have a lot of US and English followers, and everybody were protesting that Mason won that fight. I mean, like 20 people in the chat were protesting. I was like, okay, 20 people protests and nobody says the decision is fair.
Yep. Yep. And I'm sure anybody across the world would agree. It's I don't know what they see, but it's once they put a decision down, it's very hard, if not impossible, to reverse it. I mean, maybe in the future they can revamp the scoring system and try to do it a different way. Maybe you go back to Pride or Let Way has a good one. You know, the Myanmar, kind of like Thai style, where it's if you go the whole fight, it's considered a draw. So everybody should just receive equal pay, and it shouldn't count on your record, and it only should get a win if you finish them. So that's an interesting way of doing it. There's a few other ways to do it. They just need to change the scoring system, which would eliminate the judges. So there's a few ways to do it. It's going to happen in the future. Judges can be paid off or whatever. It doesn't. I don't really know how to correct it if unless you have any ideas.
Latvia has pretty much solid scoring system. Only if level of blood is the same, they give a draw. That's Latvia, like Burmese boxing.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, they have pretty much entertaining scoring system. What can you say about your fight against Carlos Guerra?
He kicks like a truck. He kicks really hard. I've had a lot of just going over to Thailand and getting just kicked super hard and checking for the first time, like on a really, really properly thrown kick. Prepared me for that, but he kicked like a truck. He came out low kick strong. We were expecting that, but it never the amount of pain that shoots up into your head. You got to control. He was a tough opponent, very tough, and he fought until the end.
So you think it was a very much of a hard fight?
It was a hard fight. Besides the damage to my legs, I think I won everywhere else. As far as damage, positioning, takedowns, attempting to finish on the ground, boxing. I think the only thing he had, thinking back to it, I haven't rewatched the fight, is his leg kick. So I think it was a good, strong fight, but I don't think it was a split decision. I think it was unanimous.
You fought Pat Sabatini, now UFC fighter. Back then he wasn't. All right. I mean, Pat Sabatini, according to me, no offense, but I think he's the greatest tragedian of UFC, man. His opponent was like 11.5 pounds, I believe, above the scale. Like Thiago Alves, I think it was some insane value. Yeah. I can't even imagine how he felt.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for him. If that was me, at least I get paid. I get paid to make weight, and they're guarantee another shot. So, I mean, he still has what he wants. It's just he doesn't get to fight just yet. Just wait a little bit. Here's some money. So, I mean, it's still a good thing. But 11 pounds over, all I can say is, I hope he's all right. I don't know. Or if he did it wrong and it wasn't a health issue, then you should rethink things a little bit, bud. So.
His opponent was heavily overweight. I mean, that has never happened in the history of UFC. You just had Rambo Johnson, who was way overweight, but not that much. I mean, when you fought Pat Sabatini, how did that fight go? What do you think about that fight?
I think it was fair. They had a good game plan, and one that was completely, I don't know, it was foolproof. His wrestling is very good. His entry was flawless both times, and his control on the ground is flawless. He gave no space for me to do what I needed to do to get up. No error by his part. So halfway through the first round, he submitted me in the second, but halfway through the first round, I was honestly thinking in my head, wow, I can't win tonight. So let me keep fighting to survive at this point. He was flawless. He was good. I don't know if he was just perfect that night or that's how he is in general. I don't train with him enough. I would like to, but no, well played. He deserves that win by far.
Your next fight was completely different. I mean, your last fight at CFFC show, it was pretty much different. It looked like, did you do some specific kind of training sessions for this last fight?
Well, every time we fight Orthodox versus Southpaw, I switch stances on both since day one. When I first started, I trained whatever footwork, whatever techniques. I did them in both stances. It took extra time, so I can flip-flop. But every time we fight a Southpaw, it's getting used to sharpening the techniques against the Southpaws again. So and making the read. So that was one correction we did, fighting a Southpaw. And naturally, we just progressed on the wrestling, not specifically for this fight, but in general, just improve the wrestling, improve a little bit on the jiu-jitsu side, and make the corrections needed to improve as a fighter, not just get a win.
How does one day in your life look like?
Wake up, study. It varies, but wake up, study tape, research, whatever, strength and conditioning, new techniques for striking, grappling, just more fresh in the morning. And then after several hours, get to the first workout, which could be technique-based or conditioning-based, and then a couple hours, and then take a break. I do still work still, so several days a week I have to go work just to supplemental cash because at the lower levels, fighting doesn't pay enough to support anyone. So, and then in the afternoon, I go back for another session to whatever techniques are that day, grappling or striking, and then, do your stretch and relax and usually get home pretty late, and then a little bit of video game or TV time, and rinse and repeat the next day. That's pretty much every day. So 2 sessions a day, not always super strenuous, but consistent, and the occasional work day. And you fit relationships in when you can. Something always has to go, and you try the best you can. I think I found a good balance, though.
What are your plans for the future in MMA?
Hopefully I get a call soon from anyone. Hopefully. We've got a few little buzzes, but if not, then I guess we'll do another CFFC or Shogun, a local show, or the Contender Series calls, or if any of the other big shows, PFL, 1FC, UFC, it doesn't matter to me, Bellator. I have to keep going. I have to keep progressing, keep training. I love it. I love not necessarily the competitive side because that can be hard, even though enjoyable. But the training I do enjoy, and my body is still holding up well. So I'll keep pushing until something happens.
Would you like to add something or to greet someone? Would you like to give a shout out to someone in the interview, please?
We'll be here all day. I made a post recently that anybody wants to check out my Facebook page, thanking everybody. But the general gyms and loved ones, they deal with the brunt of all the emotional up and down from training days and disappointments and loss and the excitement of winning. And just thank everybody for keeping it moving forward, and thank you, by the way. I'm trying to get into like podcasting and things like that just out of enjoyment, and interviews just because interviewing people is interesting to me as well, which I'm sure it is to you. That's why you're doing it. So it's what's keeping everything alive and everybody, happy and interesting. This is a new type of media, pretty much. Instead of a movie, you're listening to two people talk. So, even thank you. So.
Thank you so much for this. Yeah, pretty much entertaining story. I will put this to creation now. Like, I hope in like 6-7 hours. I must go to work now, but when I get back, I will publish.
Okay, yeah, take your time, and yeah, thank you for everything. And your English is great. So.
Believe it or not, English is my third language. Serbian, Bulgarian, then English.
Oh wow! Whew. Yeah, you're impressed. Very impressed.
Thank you so much, man. Okay, catch us some other time. I will put it to creation now. Have a great day, and hope to listen it in the evening.
All right, we'll do. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.